discussion on the topic strategic planning for L&D to support business in hybrid era. And for this, we would like to invite our panel members first. We have Ms. Divya Ramachandran, who is Director OD at 24/7.ai. Sumata Chaudhary, Vice President and Head HR for Karnataka and APT Cluster Vodafone Idea. Rakesh Harinarayan, Joint Vice President at Aditya Birla Capital. Shamundeshwari K, who is Head of L&D at TVS Electronics Limited. Ashwini Kumar, who is Chief People Officer at IIFL Samasta Finance Limited. Mr. Kamal Sehdev, Director of HR at Delta Electronics India. Yaha Rashid, who is Global Head of L&D, BCP and Workforce Transformation, Digital Workplace at HCL Technologies. Savita Nair, Head of Launch Advisory Services at Adobe. And this elite panel would be moderated by Anita Guha, who is CIO Talent Advisor at IBM. With this, please welcome all our panel members with a huge round of applause.
Great. Okay, so you can see that we have quite an eminent panel here, and we have the non-enviable position of standing between you and lunch. But because we've got such an eminent panel, we have permission to run through till 2 p.m. so that you can really get some in-depth input. Okay, so at least you guys are all listening now. This is not the nap time session. The nap time session can come after lunch. But right now, we are going to really compress our panel time. We do have an additional 15 minutes, right? So we will break at 1:15, is that correct? Yes, so we have till 1:15. I'm keeping my phone here just to keep track of the time, but we're going to, that extra time we really want to use to open up to questions for you guys. So we'll try and compress the panel time and then give you a chance to ask questions, all right? Our topic today is really around this area, this situation of looking at strategic planning for L&D to support business in a hybrid era. And we thought we'll really look at two key questions. One around really giving you an opportunity to see some case studies of what's happening in companies to make this adaptation. And then we look at what can we as L&D professionals do differently to adapt ourselves on an individual level. So I'm going to start with some questions around learning about what are people doing in their companies. And I'd like to start with Mr. Ashwini. So if you could go first, just sharing with us some kind of strategic initiatives. Yeah, you can pick up a mic. We'll share the mics. There's one here as well. Sharing, like, what are some of, maybe a strategic initiative that you are running in your organization? Yeah.
Thanks, Anita. Yeah. Thanks, Anita. I am representing a financial services domain, India Infoline. And in financial services domain, we have around 13,000 people, workforce. And building a kind of engaging and a learning environment and giving them a good career path becomes a big challenge for us. So when you talk about the digital strategy in the hybrid era, and also we talk about how we can bring in the best of the implementation and the execution in terms of learning and development LMS platform. So we as a company faced a typical two big challenges, which you will also correlate with the same. One was uptake of the LMS, means their consistent usage by the end users. And the second was the cost part, what Prasoon also talked about, and huge cost of development. So we thought that how to really address those kind of challenges. And when we were changing the LMS system, we thought two strategies. One is that our career roadmaps for our people and the learning maps were actually not up to the mark. We realized that first of all, we have to make those learning maps and the career roadmap for those roles, which we call it a very critical role for the organization, very much evident and a seamless kind of thing, more transparent to the people. So we defined the policy around it. And then after we built in those kind of policy and those kind of point system with career roadmap so that our LMS systems are more engaging and there is a pull factor altogether. And you'll not believe within 6-7 months, there was around 85% kind of uptake, and people were very, very happy, and it was an engaging kind of platform for them. Because what Mr. Rao also talked about, that people should see, they should know what's in it for me. If they don't know what's in it for me, and I don't know my future career or role, and I don't know the roadmap, of course I'll not be able to engage with the system. The second was the cost. Huge cost. Again, the cost of development and the turnaround time is always very high when you outsource the vendors. So what we thought why not to have our own audio-visual theaters and okay, have a one-time kind of investment, but we'll give that kind of investment, we'll give a thought and we'll do that kind of a big investment. And what we did, we chose actors, directors, and also the dubbing artists and all internally from our team. Not the HR L&D team, but across the functions, across the organizations. And let me tell you, we call people from the field also nowadays that you can dub, you can be an artist, you can, you can represent a customer, you can represent a vendor or whatever, different kind of artist. And today the cost of content has really been optimized, has come down. And also we pay for that. We say, for example, if I pay a vendor 100 rupees for 1 minute content, I'll pay 40-50 rupees to my employee. Why not? And that has really optimized the cost. That has really built a quite engaging factor for our people. And that is how we are leveraging their passion and artistic kind of, I'll say, their nature. So that is what we have done, Anita. I think this is really working for us. And I think when we'll go for lunch, I think we'll surely explore StratBeans and other platforms. What is there for us? Thanks.
Great. Okay, so some great ideas, identifying what's in it for me and also leveraging employees to save costs and also build engagement in the process. So now let's take that further. Once you've identified the what's in it for me, how do we actually build that and build the right skills and competencies? Shamundeshwari, would you like to take that one?
Yes, Anita. So I represent TVS Electronics Limited, which is part of century-old TVS Group. So TVS Electronics Limited is kind of completely a manufacturing, Indian electronics manufacturing and service provider for over 36 years. So to talk about how these learning impact the business, which is always a question mark, like come what may, the man days with Mr. Rao spoke about and Mr. Chella was talking about the innovation. Yes, of course, we are looking at new product development. It's a customized learning where we are also following the model, which is like adapt, adopt, and agile way of learning. It's more of agility has come in the way of learning right now. And to quote an example, like now each of the job role is being mapped to a skill or a competency. So we have reiterated those to understand whether the job skill competency which is mapped to the role is right. And we weed away some of it and the new competency which is required to perform this role. So that was the first step that we did. And we were able to find out this audience were able to take the learning as a pull instead of a push. We have the same learning ecosystem. Like I think everybody here would have the e-learning platform. We have our own instructional designer who develops e-learning content as well. Yes, we even tried out the AR way of learning because it's assemble and disassemble of printers. So we tried all the learning ecosystem to be very evolved. And we found that one of which is very, very effective, as Mr. Rao pointed out, his team has come out with, because that was one of the case study which I underwent through my IDAP, which is clearly learning in the flow of work. It's absolutely there. That's when people value the L&D department, to be very, very frank, because it helps them achieve the goal. So we always begin with the end in mind, which is take improvement of an NPS score. If that is the goal for a business, then we will start working to design the customized learning program from there. And some of the models which was very successful or which is being taken by the employee as very engaging was shadowing of that particular role, be it a succession planning or the mentorship. It's not about the product management as a whole. We give a one-day classroom training and we find the challenges, they come back and apply it on the job. So it was very clear the facilitator role is not sage in the stage, it's like guide by the side. They have to mentor them, give them the tools, how they apply the learning in the job responsibility, and come back for a review. Just in case, like for product management, it starts with the persona. They explain what the persona is all about. The team goes back, apply the persona for their product that they want to innovate, come back and go for a review with the mentor. Then comes the value proposition part. So the module is being broken into several categories. And we were talking about the business excellence. It's very clear, like not giving just the Six Sigma certification training to them. It's all about come back, apply each of the model, be it a DMAC, the defined stage, how they apply it, find out that it's a benefit, is it a project that definitely we have to do, which will give impact, and then move on to the measure phase. So each of the phase, the learning intervention is required where it's learning in the flow is what I want to really reiterate upon. And thank you so much.
Okay, Shamu, you've shared a great example of looking at applying skills and competencies and putting them into action. But as learning professionals, one thing that we all struggle with as well is using learning to transform organizations. And I'd like to invite you, Kamal, to share a little bit of an example from your side.
Sure, thanks, Anita. So I come from an organization named Delta Electronics. Delta Electronics is a 50 years old organization with around 70,000 employees working worldwide with more than 100 countries. So with this scale, one thing which is very, very important for us is the technology. We have to absolutely depend on the technologies to make sure the policies and processes are in place. So would like to share, take an opportunity to share two examples, which has really taken our organization to a different heights altogether, because I've seen a transition for India organization from 300 to 3,000, and now we are aiming at 10,000. So one thing which comes handy is of course, the introduction of LMS and academies and other things, but the internal management of trainers and courses. When in India context, when we start talking about that we need to build and strengthen our learning initiatives, we are more and more largely depending on the external forces. But making sure that how we can make our internal training team and internal courses library very, very strong, we came up with a lot of policies and processes which are a big kind of set an example for other HODs and business heads. Because the first time when you all go to your HODs or your business heads or CEOs, they will definitely say, no, we don't have time for this investment in terms of taking our people out for trainer as a trainer or building our courses. So setting the right context, coming up with the right policies and some kind of incentive plans, for the trainers, and building those right frames, in terms of the course development, be it e-learning or be it the classroom trainings, and setting the right what kind of dollars you will pay them. I think that is something which you have to look forward to, because that will really help in terms of making sure that our internal strength is very, very strong. And second is that more importantly, the choice, the Netflix or YouTube models, or we say shorts model. The choice is very important, that you give your employees a choice to choose, what they want to learn. Of course, there has to be a balance, that you need to give them some kind of restrictive and mandatory courses, which are very, very important. However, when you give them more choice, and they can make sure that whatever they want to learn and it is available, it will make a difference, in terms of rather than only a KPI of the training team. So this is what.
Great. Okay, so incentives for learning, that seems like something quite exciting for all of us. And then choice. I think all of us want to give our learners choice. Now, when we think about choice, there's the choice of technical learning and soft skills learning, and trying to kind of balance, how do we encourage our people to do one or the other and make a balance of both? Would you like to comment on that, Rakesh?
Thank you, Anita. Sure, I will. I would like to begin by saying I think it's a privilege and a delight to be here. I'm from Aditya Birla Capital, which is the financial services arm of the Aditya Birla Group. Workforce of more than 30,000 people, and the biggest bane in financial services industry, large churn in the front lines, big needs of the changes in the regulatory and external market. How do we remain abreast of all of those things? This balance between functional, behavioral continued, I do not know for how long, and it has become all the more important in the new hybrid era after the pandemic. We approached it in two separate elements. The first one, when we looked at functional, we said, the first part is the BAU. How do we ensure that people are still learning, still engaged, still productive? And the second one is, how do we ready the organization for the future? Which the asset of fintechs, the new age competitions, technology, business is not the way it is anymore. Customers are changing, expectations are changing, even employees' requirements are changing. So we looked at what would be the future skills for tomorrow in the functions that we are identifying today. What does IT look for in 2025 and beyond? What does HR become in 2025 and beyond? And we brought in the global best to give us an outside-in perspective, right? Future skills. In the risk function, for example, what is Asia Pacific moving to, and what does risk mean for organizations of a scale that Aditya Birla has today? We heard the outside-in, and then we did something very interesting. We did an assessment of the people inside. And I think that was a real eye-opener for us. For example, if I would like to ask all the L&D and HR professionals in the room, how many of us can touch our heart and say we know what are the top 3 LXPs available in the market with the pros and cons for each, and say what is ideally suited for my ecosystem, might or might not. So looking at an assessment of where I am today is actually a trigger for wanting to know more and more there. So we did that, and it's a long journey. It's a 3-year-old journey for building the functional element both for current and the future in the organization. The moment we embark there, and business is very clear, right? Like what Mr. Rao was saying before me, they keep coming and asking, L&D kya karta hai? For them, the expectation of functional is far more than behavioral, because I can see rupee value difference. I can see somebody able to do their job better. However, the underlying need for behavioral, I feel, is far more deeper and important. In hybrid, the differentiation between theory X and theory Y became much more common. I'm sure many of us are aware of this. Theory X in management, in motivational principle, talk about people need to be supervised and pushed to do their best. And theory Y says that people are intrinsically motivated and rewards and recognition will work better. Trust deficit is typically an outcome in hybrid when I'm not able to see my workforce in front of me. Now that needs mindset shift that is behaviorally inclined and driven. So there is a big shift required to develop the behavioral skills right from the mindset onwards to the softer aspects of communication, influencing, collaboration, and networking. So I think it's an ongoing journey. It has commenced well, and I'm sure each of us have our own methods of making an adaptation to it. But that's where we began from. So I just wanted to share that.
That's great. Okay. So, at IBM, we use something called, we've been working with Arbinger, and they do some really good work on mindset. So that's something that you might want to look up and explore. Thank you for that. So I know I've been spending a lot of time on my right side and neglecting our folks on the left. So I'm going to turn to the left side of the panel now and focus on a second question, which is the question around all of us as L&D professionals. What can we do to adapt to this change? How can we respond appropriately? So let me start by asking Divya, if you can share a little bit about, as learning professionals, what's the need of the hour?
Thanks, Anita. So some great perspectives and initiatives that have been shared by my fellow panelists. Something that I want to talk about. So based on the last couple of years, what challenges that we've seen in the organization and the various initiatives that we've launched, something that's come to our awareness is it's something extremely fundamental, and it boils down to what has really changed from leadership expectations, and the answer that we got was...
Mic to your mouth.
Okay. The answer was nothing much actually in one sense, right? It goes back to the fundamentals. We are, as supervisors, as managers, as leaders, are expected to deliver the same thing in terms of whether it is setting goals, motivating teams, engaging with teams, achieving results. The fundamentals remain the same, whether it is in a synchronous environment, asynchronous environment. Those aspects haven't really changed. What has really changed is in terms of those water cooler conversations which we
have missed in the last 2 to 3 years, and what does that mean to us as learning professionals? One thing that we've observed is building confidence amongst our supervisors, our managers, that letting them know they need not be limited by it, right? While some aspects are different, they need not be limited by it. Another thing that as learning professionals we've also realized is we need, because of the change that is happening, there is a lot more need for focus on those behaviors that are going to bring in results. And with that, there is an initiative that we took in the organization. It's called Institute of Operational Excellence, and it has worked wonderfully for us. And as part of that, what we have done is identified those critical leadership interactions that people need to engage in. Going back to the basics, like I said, right, they need to set goals, they need to engage and motivate their teams, and they need to achieve results at the end of the day. What are those behaviors that need to be demonstrated as part of achieving these leadership activities? Those have been articulated, and there are people, consultants, who are observing these behaviors and giving feedback to our supervisors and managers. And so that is one part of it, right? The one part of it is about results. Are we able to build capability amongst our leaders, amongst our supervisors, so that they are able to focus on results? Because now you do not have the option of visibility-based performance reviews. It's a lot about impact-based performance reviews. So we've looked at how do we build capability amongst our people so that they are able to have conversations with people, some difficult conversations with people, so that they are able to focus on results. The other, which meant this, right? There is a systematic approach which is really required in ensuring that there are observations happening, there is feedback happening on how people are doing some of these basic activities. The other aspect which we found extremely crucial, and it is more critical in the hybrid environment, is how these activities are delivered, right? One aspect which I already spoke about was results. The other aspect is how these results are achieved, and for that also there is a need for us to build capability amongst our people on things around how do they understand mental health, do they understand the human element of interactions with people, right? So mental health, empathy, these softer aspects of human interactions as well. So to summarize, what we've really looked at from building capability, and I think that's what I want to conclude with. In the hybrid era, there are two-fold focus that we will really need to have. One is building skills around achieving results. The second bit is definitely around the human element of it, which is empathy, which is mental health, around those aspects.
Thank you, Divya. Okay, so just on the human element, if we hone in on that, and the fact that also we've all been through a very difficult pandemic, or only pandemic, and it's changed the way we interact with people, and it's also changed the aspirations of our people. It's also made it harder for us to retain talent, and so I'm going to invite Yaya to just touch on that topic. As learning professionals, how do we also engage and retain good talent?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. And I come from Digital Workplace Services. I represent that function, which is about 25,000 people strong and growing. But when we really kind of stared at this once in a century pandemic, we had two challenges that came up. One was all the organizations started to accelerate across different industries in terms of digitally transforming. So we had more requirements that were coming up. So L&D became, instead of being a side function, it became a central function in terms of the entire enablement journey, right? So we had to look at it innovatively. Two challenges. One was hiring at scale, on time, and two was the great resignation that followed, right? A lot of opportunities that were So within L&D, we looked at how do we do it, right? So one was leveraging what we call as the shift left, shift right. During my times, when we had technology, you have to learn something. You just have to learn one technology and that's it. You can survive for the next decade. But today, it's every 30 or 90 days, there's a new technology that comes up, and we have to ensure that our people are upskilled and are ready to get it. Because if we delay that, we expose to revenue leakage as well, right? So to take care of this, as well as ensuring that our people's career aspirations are taken care of, we launched something called as a converged delivery model. So we looked at all the skills that we have within our base of employees, what skills they can move left, what skills they can move right, so that there's no ambiguity. There's skill and will of an employee that's there. And then they move on to become L2s, L3s. So we launched monthly learning calendars, quarterly academies, so that people complete it with a tech certification. They become L2s, L3s with a promotion as well. And also a stated career development framework where people aspiring to become leaders move into the leadership pipeline. People aspiring to become solution architects move there as well. So looking at those two aspects, we were able to kind of solve most of our challenges. And touchwood, we've been at 15%, which is best of the breed within the industry on the resignation aspect, as well as people are aspiring. The third one was we launched something called as the DWP University, where we encouraged our employees to go ahead and create the content as well as train people, and they were recognized for that. And that really led to a lot of people being felt engaged, really important, and then a lot of collateral started to come up, and that really helped some of those niche skills that we were able to enable on demand.
Great, okay. I can sense the audience is getting a little bit restless. There's a little bit of the smell of food, Taj lunch wafting in the distance. But I'm telling you, for sure, the food for thought is here on this panel. So hang in there for a little longer. And I'm going to invite you, Mr. Sumanta, to please share with us a little bit about just the business connection, L&D with the business. How do we really have that impact in a more effective way? If you could touch on that.
Thanks, Anita, for asking that question. I come from telco and I'm from Vodafone Idea. Very, very important question. It's a vast subject, but I'll try and answer that as briefly as possible. See, last 2 years, we have seen there is a change in work style pattern, and we have majorly shifted to remote. Post-pandemic, we have seen that the way we are perceiving work and workspaces, that has also changed, and there is a accelerated progress towards virtual working and the hybrid ways of working. And I was recently going through a report, that report says that 75% of the workforce still says that I want to work remotely at least 2 days in a week. At the same time, there are organizations who are saying that there are people who has to work out of office, and they have traversed that journey successfully, and they are bringing those people back to office safely. So this is a hybrid population that we are talking about, and that's the challenge. So what do we do as L&D professionals? We have to join hands with business. And there are specific, and this is going to stay. I believe this is the model that is going to stay. This hybrid is the future. When we worked remote, the entire L&D fraternity has changed and changed very fast. And they have transferred everything to online platforms. And I hats off to the L&D fraternity who has partnered business in a long way. But right now the context has changed, the situation has changed. We are saying, and there are specific challenges that the business is facing. And I'll not tell these as L&D challenges, these are business challenges. So what do we do as L&D professionals, as L&D fraternity to upskill and reskill our employees who will help us to attain the business growth and the business goals? So there are few challenges that comes to my mind. Number one, how do I integrate self-paced learning with a highly active engaging session, which is the need of the hour? Second important challenge is with the advent and increase of social and collaborative learning technologies, some part of it we have seen in the first half of the day. The speakers came and talked about that. uh, when an L&D professional is coming and creating learning solution, he or she need to think about something called webinar fatigue, something called number of excessive sessions, fixing up facilitators, timing, and of course cost. Third thing, very, very important, how do I retain and how do I engage my learner for a larger period of time? Because you see, in a older ways or in traditional way of creating learning programs, I could have wrapped up a training program in a day or two. Right now, the same content, if not more, is getting delivered in several weeks. So that's a challenge for me. How do I retain the engagement level of my learner for a significant period of weeks, which is not getting wrapped up in a day or two? So if I have to think about these three challenges, and of course, somebody was talking in the morning saying that the Gen Z and the millennials, what is actually attracting them to be getting sticked in the organization, the kind of value that they're getting due to learning atmosphere. And that has a direct impact to attrition. This is something that I'm talking about from my personal experience. We are an industry, we are also dealing with a high amount of attrition, as Kamal was, he was speaking of. So what we do, there are 3-4 things, and I will refer to Mr. Rao, and thanks, he has kind of made my job easy. How do I integrate learning in the workflow? And he was talking about creating small but interactive and impactful learning nuggets, which is at the same time small, short, but it is beneficial and impactful. Number 2, how as L&D professional, and some bit of it we do as an organization, can offer an array of solutions so that I can have the attention span, I can have the engagement of all these learners. We can have live webinars, we can have live speaker session, we can online presentation, and we have seen some part of it. Third, very, very important tool, and we have utilized some part of it, is gamification. It's a fun thing, but at the same time, it also offers something called instant recognition. There are certificates, badges, which a learner can go showcase in the networking space. That gives a sense of instant recognition, and that particular achievement comes into space. Number 4, if I can utilize, saying put the learner in the driver's seat and make him or her accountable for his or her own learning. AI, we have kind of beaten this word to death, but yes, we can utilize AI to create that learning journey, and the learner himself can be enabled to create a learning journey for himself. What is happening? What will happen here is I am shifting the autonomy back to the learner. So there is a shift, paradigm shift from push to pull, and I can save a lot of time, because that becomes a single most agenda to push learning hours in an organization. If I am making my learners accountable and autonomy goes back to the learner, it makes sense. And fifth, the last but not the least, what we are doing in some space is creating something which is customized learning experience. Customized experience comes for shopping, food, movies. Why not learning? So what we are saying is individual learning catalog, which will offer something which will cater to the individual learning need, which will also be driven by the behavioral change. And we as an organization, all of the organizations are sitting on a huge amount of data. So how do I analyze those data to create some of the learning needs for the individuals? So these are the 5 things that comes to my mind, and when I watch the L&D space and some part of it, we also kind of exercise at an organization level. I think that there will be an increasing demand if I talk about flexibility, and there will be the requirement of reskilling and upskilling of our employee. That is going to stay here. But what it does, if we can skill up the L&D fraternity, and that skilling is happening in the L&D fraternities as well, this is going to add value to the business, and at the same time, it will also give that flex to adaptive learning. So that is how I will summarize this question. Thank you so much. I might have taken a minute or 2 more for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. So this is really some great insights, and the point that stays in my mind is the small bite-sized nuggets, which in many ways this panel is, each member of the panel is presenting a small bite-sized nugget, hopefully whetting your appetite so that during lunch you can contact them and have a more detailed conversation with them. We have one more bite-sized nugget before we open up for maybe 1 or 2 questions, because we may not have time for more, but over to you. Savita, you're working with Adobe, but you've also had a lot of consulting experience. So we'd really like your insight on some specific advice, one or two key skills that we as learning professionals need to build in this era. Can you share?
Thank you, Anita. And there's a lot of learning that I've had today listening to everyone talk about AI and technology and all of that. And being from Adobe technology company, that really makes me listen, my ears start perking up. So I really enjoyed those sessions. And what I would like to tell you, from my experience of doing customer onboarding. So our product, which is Adobe Learning Manager, it's an LMS, and we do a lot of onboarding for our customers. And I see two distinct patterns of behavior. So one case is where they use it for customer education. The other space is where it's used for employee reskilling. And the approach that and customer education typically is handled by marketing, and the employee reskilling is the talent management, the L&D folk. And there's a world of difference in how they approach, use the exact same product, the exact same technologies. Number one is how they treat attention. So think about it, you think about your employees as a captive audience, right? But we are actually fighting for their attention just like a Netflix is, just like a YouTube video is, right? They have so much tension in terms of time and what they can do and learn. And they have to deliver their KPIs, their jobs, all of that, and still be relevant. So the way marketing treats the customer's attention is that I need to grab it, and therefore I need to give them exactly what they need, when they need it, and how they need it. So they look at every little piece of information in 4 or 5 different ways. How do I deliver it? I know I'm talking to the L&D crowd here, so I have to be very careful. Please don't beat me up. I know you're super smart. You are all learning a lot of stuff all the time. But the idea here is not that I'm preaching to you, but sincerely, I would say you guys need to treat the employee's attention just as much, with attention, the way the marketing guys do. You really need to look at it as, how do I grab it in different ways? And that's where the flow of work that so many of the panelists as well as Mr. Rao mentioned, right? If it's in the flow of work, I need to know something. What do I typically do? I'll turn around and say, hey, Anita, how do I do this? Right? I don't go to my LMS and start searching in the Skillsoft catalog for how do I do something. Why do I not do it? Because it's not easy to find, or I'll go to Google and search for it. Right? So how do we make that happen within our own organization? And technology is prevalent. It's all available. It's just about how we treat it. The other thing that I want to call, one was, the attention part of it. The other thing that we need to think about is educating ourselves in what the technology available is. I'm not saying you need to know every LXP there is in the market or every LMS there is in the market, but what you need to know is, hey, I have the smartphone, it has 50 features. I don't need to know all the 50. I need to know the 20 that make my life easier. And how do I do that, right? There are so many people who want to, there are junior staff, tons of salespeople. So if you reach out to them and say, hey, this is my problem, this is the business problem I want to solve, you'll get 20 solutions from 20 different providers, right? This is not a very difficult thing to do. But the idea is we need to know enough about technology. And the other thing is, if you ask anybody in the organization, they'll say, yeah, L&D, I can do it, right? But you tell someone, IT problem hai, right? Will you pick anybody from the organization and say, IT problem solve karo? We don't do that, right? We say IT, only the IT guy can do, but L&D just what everybody can do. That's not true, right? So when you purchase, technologies like the LMS, the content creation, all of those platforms, you can't just hand it off to the IT and say, guys, figure it out, give it to me. You need to tell them, this is the problem that I'm trying to solve, and how can this tool fix that problem and help me configure it in that way. So don't leave, your, field of play for someone else to come and play. Right? That's very important. We know what we're doing. We are experts at what we do. We don't know technology, sure, neither does a marketing guy. But he makes sure that, the outcome that they want to achieve is being achieved through this product that they've purchased. And they hold us to account, if it's an L&D team that has purchased the LMS, I'm a lot more relaxed than if it is a marketing guy. Because the way they treat it and the way they treat us is very, very different. So if you want to have more conversations around this, I'll be at the booth as well. We have an Adobe booth and the lunch and the networking sessions. But thanks very much for your attention. And like Anita was saying, I'm the last one here standing between you and lunch. So thank you guys.
Okay, great. I think the very fact that all of you are here listening and learning implies that you are already putting into practice the second skill that Savita just talked about, which is we need to keep ourselves apprised and updated on what's the latest. And I think the booths will also help us in that regard. So I don't know if we should do Q&A, but maybe just open up for at least one or two questions. Okay, so I don't know if somebody's going to give mics to the people with the questions. Yeah, so just pass a mic. Yeah. All right. Okay, so just wait for a mic to reach you, and please be succinct in your question, and we'll try and be succinct. You can identify a person you want to answer or just address the entire panel.
Great, hi. So first of all, thank you for the great insights. I have something to take away home, which is my workplace actually, but something to build on. Is this okay? Okay, great. So first of all, thank you once again. What I would really wanted to ask was, some great insights, but I wanted to just touch on a little bit on the efficacy measures, right? And more than efficacy measures, I'm really asking about efficacy methodologies. So great outputs have been seen, but has it been long-term is my question. So any of the panelists, if you'd just like to highlight that, that'd be fantastic.
So measuring the effectiveness, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, so the efficacy measures, let's just say you brought about a system tool, for example, over time, what has it showcased? What has it brought about? What is some measures that you can actually, put into maybe the SLAs or the metrics or, specific indicators, so to speak?
See, the efficacy starts from the platform itself. If you have LMS platform, first is the adoption and uptake. The first is that. Then you have to see the, nowadays if you see LMS, the features are that this user was logged in when, for how many minutes, how much content they have consumed, and have they finished all the content. So you get a lot of dashboards and a lot of reports from there. And you can understand that, yes, how engaging my content is. So rather than just forcing the content to the learners, we also have to understand how engaging my content is. That is one. That will give you a good efficacy measures. Now, what about my efficacy measures or effectiveness of learning programs itself? I talked about, say, for example, a career development path. Okay, fine. I'm one of the sales guy, and I know that I have to reach here and in this product line, and I know, okay, if I follow these kind of learning programs and this kind of sales delivery, of course, I'll be reaching this manager level or territory manager or whatever regional manager. Now, the question is that how will I define this? In the sales, little bit easy. In the engineering, again, a little bit easy. But when you are into some more soft skills part of it, it becomes difficult. But there also we can measure. There also we can measure. You have to link with the, say for example, what we have done actually is that when we take our people through the leadership development programs, we link it with the employee engagement scores. We link it with the attrition levels in that particular area or region or state. We link it with the absenteeism, how you're connected to your team. Nowadays, say for example, I have in a state, 1,000 people, but on a single day, only 800 people are present, 20% absenteeism. So it's a detrimental to business, isn't it? Now in that thing, if you are really with the leadership skills or connect and all, if the line managers are really connecting to the people and increasing that retention or decreasing the absenteeism to from 20 to 10%, 10 to 5%, that's efficacy, isn't it? So that way, I think we have to have a very clear KPI connect. We have to discuss with the business managers, we have to discuss with our HR, L&D people together. It has to be a kind of a committee who can decide on what should be measured and what should be the relevant measure also. Sometimes we get carried away that let's measure it. We have a lot of numbers, we have a lot of things, but what is a relevant measure for that program? I think that is very important, and after you have the proper matrix decided, then it's easy to showcase to the management as well. And we are doing it. Every month we are doing it, and it's really working for us. Thanks.
So you can also look at the Kirkpatrick model. I think all of you are familiar with that. So just look it up. I mean, the fourth level of that model, that ROI aspect, is still really hard to achieve. So it's something that's always been hard. It continues to be hard. But these are some great techniques to kind of get to it.
So thank you, first of all, for this question. It's a very important question, and every CFO asks L&D guy. This is a very common problem. So what I can share with you a very practical approach. One is that, of course, one is the immediate efficacy in terms of when you conduct some learning programs. That is the immediate reaction. What happens after, say, immediately after the program. However, you can have some kind of a model where you can go back to those departments, managers, and HODs after 3 months, 4 months, and you can schedule your reviews with them, because it's not only, the onus is not only on the L&D, the onus is also on that department, because the department only agreed for that learning, isn't it? It's not the L&D, which said, okay, you have to learn this. So please, we have to make sure that our horizon is bigger in terms of, understanding what is the department onus as well. Yes, the mechanism, the processes, the policies, everything that we have to monitor. And of course, we are the custodians for that. So that is my take on that.
And there is also, by the way, this afternoon, a whole topic on ROI. So definitely, that's a place to get more info. Yeah. So there's one last question. Is there time? Yeah, go ahead. Just introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, my name is Madhusudan. What digital skills should talent development managers be familiar with, at least in the next 2-3 years? What is your thoughts on that? What digital skills? Like, for example, yeah, I can expand if you want.
Hey, thanks for that question. And I'm sure there are tons of new technologies, new stuff that's evolving. But I would say, to that efficacy question as well, it kind of relates. There's something called the XAPI, earlier it used to be called Tin Can. That's really, really something, it's very powerful, but I see it very seldom used. And I've seen it being used very, very successfully. So in case you want to have a conversation more detailed, we can do that. But that kind of brings what happens in the real world back into being able to measure it. So that's one that I would recommend, you get yourself familiar with. The other thing, there are lots of new technologies emerging. And Prasoon, I think, spoke at length about what's possible in the content creation space and, how to edit things and on the go and stuff like that. So there's those aspects of it. The traditional stuff, of course. But they've changed considerably from when, we were using it extensively. Maybe when you started off your career and you're not using those tools anymore, it's someone much more junior in our organizations actually working on it. But they've changed considerably, so I would say, keep in touch with all of those.
Okay, great. So I think with that, it's a wrap. I'm not even going to attempt to summarize all the myriad ideas that have come from this very, very eminent panel across a number of industries, from finance to telecom to IT to electronics. So you've got a lot of ideas, hopefully, and we can chat over lunch and beyond. So back to you, Ashi.